everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Pebble. And today I am super excited to introduce you to my friend Shanay, otherwise known as Shamelessly Shanay. I just love that name.
Thanks.
And we are going to be talking about words because it's Wednesday and it's going to be Wednesday words and our shared love of books and reading and how there's lots of ways you can be a reader. So, Shanae, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, because you certainly are a busy woman, and about, your love of reading and how you've come to make that a part of your life despite being a busy person.
Sounds good. Well, I am Shanay. I was raised a military brat, and I am now a military wife. And I have two wonderful little kids, a 6 month old, well, almost 6 month old, and a 3 year old. And like Tracy said, I love reading. It stemmed from whenever I was little. I actually didn't learn to read until I was in second grade. I had a fabulous teacher, um, and she just really helped me and pushed me, which is also what inspired me to become a teacher. Um, so those two things are really important in my life. And ever since then, my mom said that I just never put down a book, and I've just always been reading. Um, Obviously now as a mom, it can be a little challenging at times, but I still find ways to make sure that I'm reading because I just love it. Yeah, so I guess I got really back into reading again right when the pandemic happened. I had a newborn and I was at home by myself. And so my mom was just giving me all these books, and I just got really back into reading again, and I haven't stopped since.
I hear you. I was the same way. I was always packing a book. My mom talks about me worrying about that I was going to walk into things because I would try to walk and read.
Oh my goodness.
And I all through grad school and even a good deal through the pregnancy of my second child, and nursing. I remember reading the final Harry Potter book and crying over my daughter. But
Oh,
once she got active, and I had two, so I had to go like two different directions.
yeah.
Having a physical book and being able to keep up with that got harder. And so I found myself always saying, oh, I wish I was reading more. I want to be reading more. I miss reading,
Yeah.
and falling out of it, and it was a big regret, and I
Yeah.
wanted to get back to reading because I miss it, but yet I was playing stupid games on my phone, and I was like,
Hmm.
I could be reading now. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. Yep. No, I completely understand that. Especially now that I have my baby, I would be up in the middle of the night nursing, and I'm like, why am I just scrolling through things when I could be reading or I could be listening to a book? And so I actually started listening to a lot of books recently since I've been nursing her at, like through the night. It's helped me stay awake as well because I don't want to be falling asleep. So that helps me stay awake. And yeah, I was gonna say something else and now I forgot what it was.
It's okay. I feel you. I have post-COVID brain, and
Yeah.
so I catch myself just going, I know I was going somewhere with this, and we're here where we are now. So, and you have an excuse because you're a nursing mother, so that's real too. No, that's the thing. For the longest time, I don't know why, but I was like, that's not reading.
Yeah.
And my friend, Court Halverson, who's also on Instagram and is very much a bookstagrammer,
Mhm.
and she mostly really reads, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing, and she and reads, and I just did it look what I just did, but physical books, like,
Yeah.
she was like, however the stories go into you, it counts.
Yep.
And I started it as almost like meditation. I started doing it during my bath time because that was
Mhm.
my little bit of time of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so I would maybe, depending on the book, because some books, have really short chapters, they have those kind of
Mhm.
inner chapters where they number it inside a chapter. And I
Yeah.
would maybe get that. And then I would find myself enjoying it so much that maybe I was getting a little bit pruny because I didn't want to get out of the book, right? And but I really started finding myself back into that. I don't want to put the book down.
Mhm.
And then when we were getting ready to move, I was the painter. I painted the stairs of the outside and such. So
Yeah.
then I had this time where I was just sitting there and I started just consuming books.
Yep.
Just I mean, and what was great about it is I got that passion back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of people are always like, how do you find so much time to read books? And I'm like, I listen to so many books. Like, I listen when I'm driving, I listen when I'm doing chores, cooking dinner, like all the time I'm listening to an audio, like an audio book. But then I usually do try and make sure I make time for physical books as well. So like I find it like it helps me wind down at night. So I'll read like 10, 15 minutes at night. And I used to, I guess it depends on the book. I used to be that reader that would just keep reading, but now it like calms me down and makes me fall asleep, probably because I'm chasing two children now. But
Yeah, I'd say you
okay.
probably that's all it takes, and you're like, okay, and the exhaustion is hit. But
Exactly.
now, because there are places where it's not appropriate for me to say, do an audiobook,
Yeah.
um, I now carry a physical book with me. And maybe it's just a few pages a day, but
Yeah.
it lit back that fire.
Yep.
And maybe it's taking me like what I would have thought was a ridiculously long time to read a book because I used to be like a book a week person.
Yep.
But I'm also listening to not. So now I usually have two things going at
Yeah.
once.
I'm
I
the same way.
have audio and um, but I'm kind of proud of myself because I'm actually progressing in a book.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. No, I'm
So
the same way. I always have 2 books going because I always have an audio book and then I always have a physical book going. But I fly through my audio books a lot quicker. Even when we moved here we drove from Florida to Texas and I was like going through what book can I listen to on the drive? And so I listened to a book the whole way here. And it was awesome because it was like I didn't have time to sit down and read during the move. And so I was still able to get that book. And then sometimes I find that when I listen to books, they're books that I might not even have necessarily read or enjoyed as much reading them because the narrators can be like they just put an extra spin on the books and make them that much more exciting.
I agree. In fact, because of you're on the Audible and they start to track you. I mean, because let's be honest, it's run by Amazon, so they have all those algorithms, so they'll
Yeah.
suggest things.
Yep.
And listened to a lot of Stephen King when I was doing all my painting. So it
Mhm.
figured out that I like spooky stories and
Yeah.
such. And but I also spread out and I had listened to the house on Haunted Hill or whatever that one is, the famous Shirley Jackson one from the 50s and such. But anyways, it it suggested Mexican Gothic, which I would have never looked for.
Yeah.
But it was so cool because the Shirley Jackson is this Southern Gothic sort of tale of like an old school horror story type thing
Hmm.
and 1950s, and it takes place in the 1950s, but it takes place in Mexico, and it has like this mix of old English and while the story is told in English, it's supposedly being spoken in both um Spanish and so the speaker is and you can tell is a native Spanish speaker
Hmm.
because she has the dialect, and there'll be little bits of Spanish to get the flavor, and then
Yeah.
you know, and so and it's written by a woman from Mexico. So it's not something I necessarily would have sought out, but it was a great little twist to get to read from a different flair and a different culture, but yet was
Yeah.
along the lines of something that is in my life. So then I was like, how cool is this? That you're absolutely right. Like I wouldn't have like necessarily like I didn't know the author, and
Yep.
I wouldn't have like been on the hunt for that. And now I know of a whole new author and line of things, because now that that's read listened to that, it's
Yeah.
throwing more of that in, because I
Yeah.
I'm all cool with like Mexican Gothic because I like Southern Gothic, and
Yeah.
it was so fun and funky of a tale. And so it actually, by doing both, I'm now in a, opened up my repertoire.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. And that's one thing that I really like also. So I'm part of some book clubs, and that's another way that I have learned to explore lots of different books. One of the audiobooks that I've read or listened to through the night was a young adult book that I would have never picked up. And it's was one of my favorite books. And it's awesome. I love reading, and I love being around people who read because like I don't read the same as everybody else. And whenever you're around different people from different cultures or different, just in book clubs, there's people from all over. Like I have a virtual one, and then I have an in-person one, and the virtual one is people all over the US, and everyone likes different things. I don't like thrillers or like spooky books, but they'll like suggest some that aren't like really, really like super thrillers. And it's like, oh, wow, I would have never picked this book up if it wasn't for you guys suggesting it to me. And so, yeah,
I think it's great too to be challenged a little. Like I'm not a gory girl, but I like a
yeah,
little tingle. Like I
yeah,
like to, but I've also I love like historical fiction.
mhm,
I really, if it's well done, if it's well researched and I'm actually
yeah,
learning something, I enjoy getting to learn about history in a way where it matters
hmm,
to the people in the story, because
yeah,
you feel enveloped by it. Like things like that, I really enjoy, because I think often you take it in more that way than just reading a historical, like such and
yeah,
did this and this. Rather, if you're reading it and people's lives are being fundamentally affected by it, then you
hmm,
take it in much more deeply.
yeah, I agree.
Like Hidden Figures, when you're,
Yeah,
it's easy to know, well, it's easy to know, learn the facts that there were these great women whom we didn't know about working.
hmm,
But if you just know the facts, then you're like, well, that's interesting. But if you
yeah,
see the women and the risks they went just driving to work, and the whole thing about like she had to spend her entire lunch break just running to the restroom and things
yeah,
like that, it's much more compelling. And you go, wow, this is her daily existence on the NASA, campus
yeah,
was a sacrifice, just
yep,
being there. That makes everything she did so much more than just, oh, it must have been difficult to work surrounded by men who didn't take her seriously. No, she just, couldn't drink any water all day because the whole,
yeah.
things like that. I always like that more.
Yeah, I never even thought about it that way. That's a really interesting point. I definitely enjoy it more because I like history, but like in college and stuff, that was always a struggle for me. But then when you read historical fiction, like I soak it up. Like it's so much easier to get into it whenever there's a story behind it as well.
And also, it's very interesting when you learn that the stories that you thought you knew, were like, "Oh, yeah, I see how." Like, I was very fascinated by all the wives of Henry VIII. And,
Mhm.
like, we all thought, "Oh, yeah, Anne Boleyn just stole him away and all of this." And then when you learn more about it, it's like, oh, she didn't have anything to say what happened to her life too. She was as much as a pawn and
Yeah.
played. And it's and when you get to read that in an interesting story, right?
Mhm.
It's a lot more fun than, well, Anne Boleyn's father really owned this property, and she had
Yeah, exactly.
been back 1 year when, well, that's okay. Well, I might as well read the Wall Street Journal. But, but when you can read someone who's really deeply researched, the
Mhm.
history in her life and her journals and the journals of the people who were supposedly close to her and the people who hated her, and you realize,
Yeah,
wow, I mean, yes, it kind of stunk to be poor then, but it kind of stunk to be royal then too, right? Like,
yeah.
especially as a woman. So stuff like that, I think, is the magic of reading. So
Mhm.
finding that passion, however you do, it doesn't have to be turning a page or a Kindle. Though,
Yeah.
a Kindle is a good way to go too, because if you have
Yep.
it across your platforms, like one of the things I found too is, if I've been slowly getting through, not because it's not great, but again, because of the actual time to read, um,
Yeah.
The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which
Yep.
I'm enjoying. So I hate saying I'm slowly getting through it because that sounds like it's not.
No, I completely agree. So I've read a couple of her books and it's taking me so long to read all of them, but I've loved all of them. I don't
She's
know
a great
why.
writer.
They're so good.
But one of the things I find it helps is on my phone, I also have the Kindle. So if I don't have the book with me, but I'm
Yeah.
sitting waiting in an office or something, uh, I can track it. I try to track it on my phone, and then
Yeah.
maybe I can get a couple pages, and then when I get home, I can do a few more. So
Yep.
that's another alternative too, is either if you're like, no, I'm not a listener, because some people don't track well
Yeah.
auditory, or if you're still like us, you're like, I'm going to try to do both.
Yep.
Then sometimes, even if you watch, Amazon will do sales. Like if you buy the book, you get the Kindle free or super
Yep.
cheap. So watch for that.
Yeah. No, and I like the Kindle too because I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out, but there's been times where I've had the Kindle book and the audio book and they link together. So if you listen to it and then you stop and you pick up your Kindle, it will link it to where it will ask you like, do you want to jump in there? And I love that. And then for me, yeah, it's awesome. And I like carrying my Kindle with me because I can just slip it into my purse and it's so much thinner, not as heavy as like if I'm carrying one of these big books. It's
Right. That's
easier.
so
So
brilliant.
yeah, yep. I carried my Kindle a lot with me while I was pregnant because it was just lighter and easier. And of course, I was at my doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And so I'd sit
You
there,
always have to wait at the
yep,
OB.
while waiting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much technology out there that is helpful for busy people who want to read, and it's amazing. I love it. I mean, I feel like I read everything. I'll read a book, I'll read my Kindle, I'll listen to a book. I'll take it any way I can get it.
Now, and do you think that is helping, like, it's your son that's the 3-year-old. Do you
Yeah.
think that he sees that?
Yeah, he loves reading. He loves books. We have bookshelves in his room. He loves to read. And I've started more now that he's at an age where he'll play by himself. And then my infant doesn't need as much attention like he does. I'll sit there and read my book and he'll see me and he'll be like, Mommy, can I go get a book? And I'm like, of course you can. Absolutely. Let's go get you a book. And usually he wants me to read it to him, But actually just a few days ago, I think I was doing my makeup or something and he was really quiet. So I was like, okay, what is he doing? And I go look in his room and he's just turning the pages in one of his books. And then he comes to me like 5 minutes later. He's like, Mommy, I finished my book. I'm like, okay.
That is the cutest.
Yes, it was so cute. I was like, I love this. Like, I hope that he continues to want to read and enjoys reading. We read to him every night. He gets like 3, 4, 5 books, and then throughout the day we try and read as well. But yeah, he loves reading, and it's so funny to me because growing up, I always babysat kids, and I would read them books, and they would fall asleep. And so I'm like, why isn't he falling asleep? But he loves the books, and he doesn't fall asleep while I'm reading ever, which is
Really,
but
really, you could fall asleep now. It's okay.
right, exactly. I'm like,
I hear
I'm
you.
6 books in.
I know mine were never easy sleepers, but at least he loves to read. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, definitely.
well,
Definitely.
I mean, instilling that passion is so important,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
in we've got such a visual world for our
Mhm.
children. And I mean, they're saying that for better or worse. And they say that there are some betters, so we don't have to be overly negative because they bring in and process information way faster than we did. But
Mhm.
their brains are just going to be fundamentally different than ours.
Yeah.
They will be wired differently because of all that they take in a different way, because
Yeah.
they get imagery put at them so much quicker.
Yep.
And so anytime that they're willing to sit down and look at a solid image or just listen is
Mhm.
such a good thing.
Yeah, I've actually also put some audiobooks on my phone that are for kids. And so whenever we go to like if I'm dropping him off for his school in the mornings, he'll be like, "Can we listen to Pooh Bear?" And so I'll put Pooh Bear on and he'll just stare out the window and I'm like, "I don't think he's actually paying attention," but then he'll say something and I'm like, "Oh, he was paying attention." Okay. But yeah, he likes them that way. And then the library. He is always asking to go to the library. He loves it. And I mean, we do have a really good library here where they have like a huge kids area with like toys and think like a lot of stuff to do for the kids. But he loves it. We'll go for story time and then he'll go and play in that area. And
That's
it's
awesome.
kind of sad now because he started school and he goes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's the days they do story time. But I still try and take him to the library, and all the librarians know who he is because we go so often, and
That's
he
awesome.
loves it. Yeah.
Well, what do you think in your life is the biggest benefit to having, renewed this passion?
Finding time for myself. I feel like it's helped me to find time for myself. Because I enjoy it. I make it a priority in my life. And um, I think my blog also encouraged me to get back into it and to make it a priority because I want to be able to share different books on my blog and everything like that. But yeah, I make it a priority and I make sure that I am taking time to read every day. Um, I think going a couple of years where I didn't read, and now that I've gotten back into it again, I don't know, I couldn't see myself not reading.
I think that's awesome. I think you hit it on the nose. Like just that little bit for yourself. I
Mhm,
I know when I mine are very close in distance to
mhm,
yours. And when my daughter was 6 months and I wasn't doing enough for myself, and it caught up with me, which is actually
yeah,
why I ended up blogging a while
yeah,
later because I was lost.
yep,
I applaud you for proactively at this point, like saying, yes, they need a lot from me, but I need me too. That's
yep,
and if
and it
reading,
provides you with, like, an escape from reality for a little while. There's definitely some books that I've tried to read, and I'm like, "This is too close to what's going on in the world right now, I can't read this." So I try and keep it fun and Um, the books that I read usually are like romance and like they're fun books, and it just helps you decompress and just take some time for myself and like just dive straight into the book, and then I'm not thinking about anything else that's going on. And then also like having anxiety, like it helps me to focus on something else during that time. So it's been very helpful for sure.
That's wonderful. Well, that's exactly what the Pebble is about, which is, those little things that bring you joy, that make your life a little bit better. And now by doing that, you are better for yourself, which makes you better for everyone else.
Yes.
I think that uh this whole debate is it's selfish to be better for yourself and such silly things.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be a debate. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be a conversation. You're here for a reason, and everything you do that makes you more fully yourself and healthy is a good thing. And
Hmm.
taking some time to take control of your anxiety and bring yourself some joy, and intellectually stimulate yourself and feel like you are, it's already been shown. Your son is like, can I go get my book, mom? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course. Thank you.
Well, guys, I absolutely suggest that you go find Shamelessly Shanae on Instagram. And what's the name of your blog again?
Shamelessly Shanae.
See, it's really easy to find. She's
Yep.
everywhere as Shamelessly Shanae. See, I wasn't smart enough to do that. I've got a couple of different names, so I always like to make sure everybody's covered. You go find Shamelessly Shanae, and you'll find Shamelessly Shanae.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. And thank you guys for watching another episode of The Pebble. And if you enjoyed it, we hope you will come back and please hit the subscribe button and have a great day.